What's going on, guys? Welcome back to NolanTCG, and we are back here today for another deck profile, and this time it's for Fluffal. So I haven't looked at this one in quite a little while, and I tried to make this work with Despia. That was originally where this deck profile started at. The first hand I ever drew with the deck was like insane, and I was like, this is perfect. Like, this is exactly what I expected this deck to put out. And then I couldn't replicate it. And I tried, and like, off just test hands, I couldn't replicate what I'd gotten to, and I was like, oh, either I'm just not being big brain enough, or maybe this doesn't work as well as I hoped it will. But yeah, ultimately, we've switched over to just playing pure Fluffal. Sorry for that disappointing sob story that I've just put out. But before we do get started, as always, please remember to drop down below and hit that subscribe button if you are new here, because we are always happy to have new people to the channel. And let's get on into the deck profile. Before we do get started on this one, though, it is brought to you, of course, by yourplaymat.com, who got us our beautiful NolanTCG extra deck sleeves. These are available on yourplaymat.com, as well as you can get custom sleeves and custom playmats, so whatever you need for the current format. There is an affiliate link in the description down below that does get you a little bit of a discount on your order. Also, enter the code NOLAN10YP for 10% off your order. Also kicks back a little bit to the channel, so everything will be very much appreciated. If you're shopping there, you're getting custom sleeves, custom playmats done. Make sure to enter our code at checkout. But let's get on into this deck profile. Okay, so starting us off for the deck profile, we of course start with 3 copies of Fluffal Dog. So we've got 1, 2, and 3. Just your standard search card when it's normal or specialed. That pairs off very nicely with the other card you want to draw with it, and that is 3 copies of Fluffal Penguin. When it's on the field, you can special summon another Fluffal from your hand. Just general link fodder, plus it pairs very well with Dog, so then you get your search off. And then of course, when it goes to the graveyard, you get that draw 2 when you use it for the fusion. Always good. Always good. Has to be for a Frightfur though. Do remember that, even though there's literally no other target we're playing in the deck. Because we're not playing that Despia build, like I said earlier. Even then, you can't use it in the Despia build. We're on a tangent. Let's keep moving. After that, we do get into our kind of, I guess, our draw engines. So we've got 3 copies of Fluffal Bear to get us to our Toy Vendor. Mills through our deck, of course. Toy Vendor is, of course, a search as well. And then we have the 1 copy of Wings to pair off with that to get us that double draw in the search. Goes +3, which is the best way of playing it. I'm only playing the 1 Wings. We're trying to fit as much kind of variant stuff in here as possible, even though this list is pretty tight. Then next off, we have the 2 copies of Fluffal Dolphin. Dolphin, the second Dolphin, of course, is the 40th card in this list, so if you're looking for space, that's the place where I'd recommend cutting it from first. I just wanted to have as many level 4 waters in the deck as possible to be able to generate, of course, I've struck a complete blank, Bahamut Shark. So you can get me totally awesome. So that's simply the reason why Fluffal Dolphin is at 2. I found that there were times when I just desperately needed to have a second level 4 water that I had access to, so I decided to bump that ratio up to 2. Of course, you do have that little bit of the interaction with Toy Vendor as well, which is always decent. Then we go into our Edge Imp line. We are playing the maximum Edge Imp line you can, because of course this is a going second build. This isn't the going first build with stuff like Necrofusion, so that is a spoiler for the end of the profile. We do have 3 copies of Edge Imp Chain, though, of course, the best card to have that's not as searchable as you would like. Then we have 3 copies of Edge Imp Scythe to let us fusion summon on the opponent's turn. Just probably the best Fluffal engine piece that is good, I guess, for going second. Just because you can get that interaction with the Cruel Whale. And then, of course, we have 1 copy of Edge Imp Sabers coming after that. Edge Imp Sabers is just here because it recurs and it's easily searchable. It's simply that easy. Like, it's something you can use twice, which is not a lot of decks you get access to stuff like that. So it's just a simple one-off. You don't need to play more than 1. Then we get into our other stuff. So for the last of our monsters, we are of course playing Dragoon in this build. Dragoon just kind of makes all rogue decks better. This deck can make it incredibly easily, so we play 1 copy of Red Eyes and 1 copy of Dark Magician. If you hit them off your Toy Vendor, you know what, some days you're just having a bad day. Then we get into our spell lines. So we've got, of course, I've decided to just completely scramble these for some reason. So starting us off, we have 3 copies of Toy Vendor. Of course, consistency. It is essentially what nets you searches and can mill through your deck. Hopefully, like I said earlier, you don't hit your Dragoon package if you're playing this build. Of course, if you do fear that, you can just not play Dragoon and just play hand traps instead. Like, it's just extra space that you could be going with. Then we get into our Frightfur spells and traps. So we've got 3 copies of Patchwork. Probably the best card in the deck, simply because it gets you to the Edge Imp monster and a polymerization, so you can get to Chain and Poly, and then hopefully you're going to be having a very good time from that point. And then the other two, we've got one copy of Repair for that Reborn. You can typically use this to get near Bahamut Shark. That's pretty cute. And then one copy of Fright Fur Fusion. This is typically what I'll use to prop off the Cross Sheep if I haven't gotten to a Cross Sheep naturally, and then you can get Recursion, come back, and then kind of set up a good board going first. Then we go into the rest of our spells and trap cards. For a bit of interaction, I don't know why I'm doing this before Poly. Spoilers, there's Poly. We're playing 3 copies of Triple Tactics Talents. This is the one form of, I guess, disruption that we're playing. We're not playing any hand traps or anything like that. Just playing the talents because if our opponent activates a monster effect to protect themselves while we're comboing off, we just take it, and then we can use it for either making a Dragoon, or we can just threaten with whatever monster that we've taken them from them. Say we've taken a Savage, it could be a pretty big Savage. And that seems fun. Seems very fun. Then we, of course, have the card I mentioned earlier. 3 copies of Polymerization. Pretty straightforward. You just need it. It does your fusion summons. And then after that, we've got 3 copies of Foolish Burial Goods. This is any Fluffal monster in the deck because it sends Toy Vendor. It feels a bit bad if you draw 2 of it, but hey. There's lots of cards in this deck that put stuff on top of deck, or they require a discard, and that's when you kind of use stuff like this. And then lastly, we have 2 one-offs. We are, of course, playing the 1 copy of Red Eyes Fusion for our Dragoon package, and 1 copy of Called by the Grave for removing pan traps, or just kind of generically stuff our opponent's going to be using to interact with us when we're trying to kill them. Okay, now we get into our extra deck, and of course, starting us off, we have Cruel Whale. We are only playing 2 Cruel Whale. Realistically, you can play 3. I just never found the need to be playing 3, so I cut it to kind of fit in some other flex spots. There was quite a lot of room in this extra deck, despite the fact that we're playing the Dragoon engine. So yeah, we've got 2 copies of Cruel Whale, gets us that pop in the interaction off the Scythe. Then we have 1 copy of Kraken. What's Crack-a-Lackin'? It's just your dual attacker. Can also net that pop. It's just a bit of like ability to break boards and keep comboing. Then we have 1 copy of Fright Fur Sheep. I found a lot of like rogue decks have a lot of trouble getting through 1 Fright Fur Sheep, and I don't know why that is, so I just decided to keep it in. This was probably the last card I put in here. I considered switching it out for something like a Nightmare Unicorn or a Nightmare card. However, I just, against like some rogue decks that you're playing against, especially online or sometimes at like locals, it just becomes very difficult for them out, and it confuses me as to why. Then we've got after that 1 copy of Fright Fur Tiger and 1 copy of Sabertooth. These are essentially just your OTK pieces. Then we've got the last fusion, of course, before we go into links. It is 1 copy of Dragoon, because Dragoon good. Odds on this card's probably going to hit on the ban list in my opinion. If that's your opinion, yeah, I guess you're not going to comment down below because you agree with me. But if it's not your opinion, you will. And then we go into our link monsters after that. So we have, of course, 1 copy of Verte Anaconda for, of course, the Dragoon. In some situations, Fright Fur Fusion, I believe, can be sent off Verte, but I've never actually done it. Then we go into our Barricade Board blocker next. This can recur your Toy Vendors from Grave. If you save you have opened like multiple Foolish Berry Goods and you want to discard it out, you can discard it for the Barricade Board blocker. End phase, get back that Toy Vendor. Then for the rest of our links, we've got 1 copy of Cross Sheep. I did mention it earlier, but it is simply here for the extension with the Reborn when you fusion summon underneath it. Then for our link 4s, I'm not playing a link 3 despite the fact that I am playing the Access Code Talker. Access Code's just here as a way to pop stuff as we're still OTKing. If our opponents set up a really big board, we need to pop a lot of things. Access Code can get on the end board. Given though we're not playing the Unicorn though, this will be 4-3, so you will need to have 2 fusions to go after it, unless I believe it's Sabertooth. If you have the Sabertooth, the one that attacks multiple times, I think that's Sabertooth. And then after that, we've got 1 copy of Appaloosa for going first negations. And then more going first cards come after that in our Xyz lineup. They are, of course, 1 copy of Abyss Dweller, Floodgates at the graveyard, 1 copy of Bahamut Shark, because that gets us into our Totally Awesome, which is another negate. But that wraps us up here for the deck profile for this one. So as always, if you do have any recommendations or things you would change, do make sure to comment them down below. Might be a little bit of time before we look at Fluffals again. Next time we might look at like a going first build or something that kind of variates on what you normally see for Fluffal profiles. I did really want that to be Despia, but I couldn't quite get it working to the way that I wanted in the time that I had. So that will wrap us up. I've of course been Ben from NolanTCG, and have a good afternoon, everybody.